Jason Keyter, welcome to Wozedu.com, former Quins and now a property developer. I'm looking outside here at the front and you've got a nice little toy which we'll talk about in a little bit. Tell us about your story, where you've come from and where you're looking to in the future.
Well, I had 11, 12 years as a professional rugby player, then had an opportunity to come down to Cornwall, build a couple of houses, fell in love with Cornwall, started building 5, 10 houses, decided to turn the housing area into a whole-day resort. We've now got 130 properties and in what is now a booming market. So a bit of luck and a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But no, we're very pleased. We've now got the makings of a 5-star resort and planning to build another 200-300 units. So we'll be a little posh centre parks in a few years' time. So yeah.
Love it. So you've kind of reinvented yourself for someone with a career. You've networked extensively. I guess you must have made trips down here. How much would you have liked maybe a tool that could have helped you make those steps without actually having to physically make the trip?
Well, I think as a sports person, you always feel a bit invincible. That post sport you're going to have doors open left, right, and centre, and it doesn't really happen. So you do need to plan a lot more. And I think to have the access to more information and guidance, to know what you're good at, where you're going to be strong at, and where your strengths lie is something that's invaluable. And I could have learned a lot of lessons much quicker had I've had that sort of information at hand.
Jason, you've got a child yourself. How would something like Wozedu help a young person grow and develop and flourish in the future, do you think?
Well, I think with all the networking opportunities and having people to talk to and have guidance and get an idea of where your strengths lie, and just having the network where you can communicate with other people. And I think that's one of the things that my generation didn't have. And certainly as a sportsman, you think you're a bit invincible in the sense that after sport, all the doors that you hope will open, but they don't. And I think having that networking ability and sharing knowledge and making sure that you're on the right path and liaising and mixing with the right people in the right circles, and I think it's an invaluable tool that my son Jago will be, as well as very good parenting and guidance from me. Hopefully that will offer the bits that I can't do. 5-star
parenting as well as resorts.
Well, that's all about 5-star these days.
Yeah,
all about 5-star.
I want to touch on your drive and your motivation, because to make it as an athlete at the top level, which you were, of course, internationally capped as well, with the USA.
Yes.
Right. That does take a lot of training, dedication, motivation. What keeps you going? What gets you up in the morning?
It's a difficult one. It's the drive for success, and it's the fear of failure that drives. It's probably the hardest and the biggest motivator. We're building a resort, so we want to improve it all the time. My son is now 3, so we have the perfect resort from the age of 6 months to 3 years old, and when he's 4, our resort will be perfect for 4 years old. Yeah. Because every time I learn from him, I take that knowledge and put it back into the resort, because I'm learning more and more about what our families and kids want. Being successful is very, very hard work, and it's very time consuming and it's very tiring, but the rewards are just unbelievable. But also it's about surrounding yourself with the right people. I had a coach, my American coach once said, have the right tools for the right job. And actually playing Premiership rugby and international rugby is quite an easy thing to do when you're surrounded by everybody doing the right job. So it's when you have to start covering for people not doing their jobs that life becomes difficult, and it's the same in sport as it is in business.
Yeah, good microcosm, because the network isn't so much physical anymore. We're taking it online, and you can see how it could replicate itself from place to place. I like that. That's a really, really good way to put it.
Yeah, and it's all the similarities between a sports field and a business field they're the same, and that is why a lot of sports people, they have that drive to be the best, because if you're not the fittest, the fastest, the strongest, and have a desire to be a winner, then there's no room in business or sport, and that's what drives me, is to be the best at what we do every day.
You mentioned earlier about fear of failure. Do you think, like with the youth of the nation these days, that kids are afraid? Maybe the press has maybe said, we're in a recession, you probably can't do this, probably can't do that, you might be unemployed here or there.
Yeah.
tough, basically. Do you think that that's a psychological thing that people need to overcome?
I do, and I think one of the things that I don't necessarily agree with is in schools saying that we don't want children to be competitive, we don't want them to have to compete with the other kids, because, and I don't agree with that. I think you have to compete, and you have to be, if you're not used to competing and you leave school, you're always at the bottom of the pile. You need to have head and shoulders up, you need to be positive, and you need to be competing from an early age, whether it's sport or in school or academics or whatever it is. You have to compete, because if you don't have a competitive nature, when you come out of the controlled environment where you've got the safety net of school teachers and parents, when you're in the real world, if you don't have that competitive nature, you generally will stick at the bottom of the pile.
So all about breeding winners.
It is about breeding winners, and you know, not everybody can be a winner. And I was actually quite a good loser. I didn't mind losing to somebody better, providing A, I gave it my best shot, and B, the person who beat me was genuinely better than me, and I had to take my hat off to a lot of opponents that were better. But if everybody's competitive and they can deal with it in that way, it means that when you lose, you're stronger than you are than you would have been had you not have competed in the first place.
I'd agree, and I think everybody can relate to that as well at some point along the way. Whether
it raises the bar for everybody.
Yes, it does, absolutely. You know, whether it's like even anything outside of education in life, you know, if you lose something, you kind of generally should be able to get up and hit back a bit harder next time. Right?
Yeah. Well, I've lost battles against opponents and then won them on the following fixture, and you've got to take your hat off and shake their hand and say you had me today, but next time, and it swings around. You work harder, you get a bit fitter, you get a bit faster, you get a bit stronger, and you come back better, and you win the battle next time.
Moving back into the business domain, have you ever had any problems, you know, with this place? I mean, has it been smooth sailing? What kind of difficulties have you faced as someone who's doing something for yourself? You know, off the bat, really.
Well, nothing in business is easy.
No.
You know, that's one thing that people I couldn't accept when I started off, that when I set up a new facility or a new restaurant or a bar or a flow rider or another health club, a kids club, a creche, you know, all the things that we've set up on the resort, a new property type, you know, anything. You know, people always said to me, you know, it takes 3 years to underpin a good solid base of a business for it to be successful. And I always thought, no, we can turn it around in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. The truth is, it does take 2 to 3 years to get the underpinning value in any business for it to be successful. I perhaps was victim to not putting the right people in the right place, perhaps doing too many things myself that I could delegate to others. And I think now the balance is there, having the right people in each pocket of employment. All of my team, and I mean team because that's what we are, have a specific role in the company, but we all have an overriding role. So we work as a team. So if somebody drops a ball, someone else catches it. And I think originally I was too specific about what people did. Now we're specific, but we're also very general about how we cover each other, and it's all about being a team.
Jason, just 2 more last points. First one being, when you wake up in the morning, I'm sure you're fairly an early riser. How do you get over hitting that snooze button and actually get yourself up and out of bed?
First in, last out, every time. When you're at the bottom of the pile or the top of the pile, you've either got to climb to the top or you've got to stay at the top if you're there. And my philosophy has always been first in, last out. I'm the first in to lead the way, and I'm the last one out to lock up and make sure that it's done right.
And would that be your piece of advice as well?
I think when you're climbing the trail, and when you're trying to get up the ladder, and you've got a boss, you get into work before your boss, and when your boss leaves, you're still working. Mm-hmm. Okay, you don't get paid any more for it, but you get rewarded and you climb the ladder much quicker. I remember my boss saying to me once, "Jason, you're always first in, last out." And this was post rugby. I went from the top of my game to the very, very bottom of the pile before doing the development side. And he made a comment. He said, "You're always first in and last out." I said, "That's because I want to get to the top quicker than everybody else." And that's what you do, first in, last out.
Jason Keyter, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Top man, my pleasure.